Hi guys, my name is Daphne and I'm going to tell you about my story of chronic illness and how I turned around my life, which was pretty much over when I was at my worst. And so let me start with a little bit about me. I'm 34 years old. I'm married. I have a husband, Pete, and we have 3 daughters, ages 2, 5, and 6. You're going to see me looking at my notes just so that I kind of keep on track here. So I got my bachelor's in education from Michigan State University, and then I taught for 6 years. 3 years I taught in Detroit through a program called Teach for America. It was really awesome. I also have a master's degree from the University of Michigan in education, administration, and policy. I have had a debilitating, mysterious, frustrating chronic illness for the past few years. And I really struggled to figure out what was going on. I felt a lot of the time like I was completely crazy, and it wasn't just me. I think a lot of people feel that way. And so that's why I'm filming this, even though probably there's going to be people who watch this and say that I'm crazy anyway. Let's see. We were never sure what was wrong with me. I had a battery of tests. I had all of the tests that you can imagine, blood tests, MRIs, CTs, everything. And almost everything always came back completely normal. And yet I knew I wasn't normal because I had debilitating symptoms that made it impossible for me to live my life. And my symptoms were consistent with conditions like ME/CFS, long COVID, mold illness or SEERS, POTS, EDS, chronic Lyme, SIBO, fibromyalgia, MCAS, the list goes on. And these chronic illnesses, they often overlap. People often have multiple of these conditions at the same time. And I couldn't figure out which one of these I had. I feel like I could have thrown a dart and it could have been any of them. And I had pretty much, as of the end of last year, 2024, I had pretty much given up hope. I thought that this was it. My life was over at the age of 34. I thought I was dying, honestly. And I didn't think I was ever going to go back to normal. I had quit my job because I couldn't work anymore. And that was really, really hard for me to admit. I'm very type A. I'm extremely hardworking. I never give up on things. I really push through. And I had to admit to myself for the first time in my life, I can't do it anymore. I can't even take care of myself. I can't feed myself. I can't help with the care of my 3 children. And it was horrible. I can't even explain how horrible it was, but I'm going to try in this video. And this is the story of how my illness started and progressed and got to the point where I thought I was going to die. And then how I figured out what was wrong and how I fixed it. And now I'm getting back my life, back to normal, back to how I was. And I know that this is, the dream and the hope of everyone who's going through chronic illness. And I'm not telling this story, to give false hope to anyone. I don't think that what was wrong with me is what's wrong with everyone. Of course not. That's not possible. But if everyone hears the story and anyone is helped, then I've done what I could. And that's my goal, is just help one person who was where I was at to even have hope that that things are going to go back to normal. So yeah, I want to start with a couple of disclaimers. First of all, I'm not a doctor. As I told you, I have a degree in education. So I don't know anything about medicine other than what I have put the last few months into full-time researching. And I'm not discounting that. It was a lot of work, but I'm not a doctor and I haven't gone to medical school, and I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you what I did and what worked for me. And the other thing is that, and it's really important to me to tell you this, I'm not selling anything. I'm not going to make money off of telling my story. I don't intend to make money. I don't want to make money off of this. That's like a personal thing for me. A lot of people in this kind of chronic illness space, first of all, they're vulnerable. They're desperate. I was desperate. And, I would have done anything. I would have done anything if someone told me that I could get my health back. And I just want to make sure that I'm not in this just to take advantage of you. I'm not. I don't want to do that. I'm also planning on posting kind of more of a short form version of this, but first I wanted to just go ahead and film my whole story, like start to finish, and it is going to be long. And then, from there I can go down and I can cut it down for people and summarize, and I can put it in text formats if that's easier for people. When I was at my most sick, I couldn't really read, and we'll go into why that is. It sounds ridiculous to someone who's healthy, but someone who's been there, you understand. I couldn't read. I wasn't reading. I couldn't do anything, right? So when I was at my worst, sometimes I could listen. I could listen to short form content, sometimes long form content, and sometimes, in pieces. I would listen to books. I would listen to podcasts, especially things about science and things about getting better and how I could do that. So if you are sick the way that I was, maybe you could listen to this while you're driving, to work or wherever it is that you go, commuting. If you're having a good day, maybe you could listen to this while you take a walk. For me, getting even just a little bit of exercise, it was extremely helpful. And if you're having a bad day, which for me, it was most days, you could listen to this while you lay on the couch, right? While you lay there and while you eat a meal you have to eat to continue to live. Maybe you're on a liquid diet, listen while you sip, okay? People might want to know why I'm sharing this. It's really vulnerable, and I know that I'm going to subject myself to everyone, saying all kinds of stuff, and that's fine. I posted my story in a couple of Facebook groups that I'm a member of, and I just can't believe the response that I got. People were so excited, and I got so many messages, like hundreds of messages from people all over the world who said, "Oh my God, you're me. I have the same story. I have the same symptoms." And then I was like, oh, it's not just me. I've maybe found something that could really help people. I was raised in a home with really strong spiritual values, we'll say. And I'm not even gonna get through this. Okay, keep it together, Daphne. You are like 5 minutes into this video. Okay. Before my dad died, he taught me that the greatest wealth in life is service to other people. And when you teach other people, they in turn can go and teach other people, and then it just keeps going forward. One of the books that I read when I was at my most down was called Think Like a Monk. It's by an author called Jay Shetty, and he's amazing. If you haven't read the book, you should. But he says in his book, when you expand your vision, you realize that even people who have it all derive the greatest satisfaction from service. So that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm sharing my story. I want to offer a quick trigger warning for you on severe depression, hopelessness, and suicidality. If you are in the dark place, which is what I call it, if you are in the dark place and you know it and you need help, I want you to stop watching this video. I want you to go get help, and then I want you to come back when you are out of the dark place and you're ready to hear the message and learn from it, and then hopefully bring it to someone else. All right, so let's start at the beginning, how it all started. I'm not entirely sure. I can't pinpoint the day. It's pretty rare in conditions like long COVID or CFS where people can say, oh, it was, April 5th, no, it kind of progresses slowly. At least for me, it did. It started just with fatigue. It just started with being tired. And around the time when all of this stuff started for me, there were a few things that happened kind of all at once that could have contributed. I think they probably all played a role. Around this time, I lost my dad to cancer. He was 57, and he was the light of my life. And huge emotional traumas like that, they impact you. They impact your mind, your body, and your soul, right? My family, myself, my husband, my daughters, we got COVID in 2021, like a lot of other people, right? I don't know, most people got it. We had been vaccinated and we still got it. So it's a huge injury to the immune system. I had a pretty minor case. It wasn't that bad. It was like a flu. But the fact that I had it, and then shortly thereafter, I started developing some really debilitating symptoms. This is one of the theories that my doctor had, was that it was long COVID. So he had talked about me going to see a long COVID clinic. I never ended up doing that, but I could see someone else with exactly my same kind of fact pattern, assuming it's long COVID and going down that route. I also had a few babies back to back. We had our daughter Nina in 2018. it was everything I ever wanted. I only, my one goal in life was to be a mom. I was overwhelmed with joy when we had her. It was everything to me, and it turned out to be everything. I loved it. I loved being a mom. Some people hate the newborn phase. I loved the newborn phase. It was so fun. We wanted to have our kids close together for a few reasons, and we did. So we had my daughter Nina in 2018, and then in 2020 we had my daughter Chloe. They were 20 months apart. It was planned like that, and we wanted it like that. Something big that happened to me with my second birth with Chloe was that not only did I get something called preeclampsia, I also had a severe postpartum hemorrhage. But anyway, I lost a lot of blood. I lost 2.5 liters of blood in my hemorrhage. And I think that likely contributed. I think that was maybe the first thing that kind of pushed me over the edge. My doctors said in the beginning that I had postpartum depression. And I think this is really common. I think that a lot of women are told when they have symptoms like this, the first go-to, the easiest thing, doctors say when you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras, right? Think about the most common thing. So a woman who has recently had a baby is feeling really down. She's tired. She's not interested in things that she used to love. She can't get out of bed even. They say, oh, it's postpartum depression. Here's the fix. It's SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. It's a type of med, right? So I started on an SSRI. It was called sertraline. And did it help? Sure. Whatever, I guess. No, no, it didn't help because it wasn't postpartum depression. And I want to make sure that I am really clear about this for people who are new moms. If you physically can't get out of bed, you cannot drag your butt out of bed for any reason, your favorite thing that you used to do, that's not normal. So I had Chloe in 2020, May of 2020. And again, light of my life, but things started getting weird after that. I was tired, so tired. And they had told me it's postpartum depression, and I accepted that. And it took a lot for me to even go in and get help, like it does for a lot of women. We don't want to have to ask for help. We've just had babies. We've dreamed of being a mom our entire life. We finally have it, and it was our dream, and suddenly I can't enjoy it. Why can't I enjoy it? Why can't I enjoy my life? Why am I not able to do the things that I used to be able to do? And so I finally went in for help in late 2021. That's how long it took me to go ask for help. I was stubborn. And when I went in, I gave them the list of symptoms that I was having. I said, I'm having headaches, everyday headaches, and they go down my spine. They're severe at times. I said, I'm having exhaustion, fatigue, right? Loss of interest in activities that I used to love, loss of motivation. Like I said, I had pursued a master's degree. I was doing, public service through Teacher America. I was a really motivated person. I was active. I was a swimmer. And I couldn't, it's not that I didn't want to, I couldn't do these things anymore. And then in addition to that, and this is where it got weird, and this is where they should have looked more into it, and they didn't, and that's disappointing to me. I had shaking in my hands. My hands were shaking, and I thought it was exhaustion. I thought I was just so tired that I was shaking. And that's kind of how I presented it. I was like, I'm shaking from fatigue. I'm so tired. And they didn't test anything. They didn't do any testing. They just gave me depression meds. It's disappointing. Anyway, I got pregnant again in early 2022. Again, we wanted to have 3 kids, and I was just going to push through because it was just depression, right? There was nothing physically wrong with me. It was just depression. So I was like, we're going to continue with our plan. We're going to continue with our life. And I got pregnant again. I was elated. I was so excited. I knew I loved being a mom, and I figured postpartum depression, it can't last forever, right? We'll have our 3rd baby and we will go on with the life plan, right? And at this time, I still was convinced that my symptoms were normal because that's what my doctor told me. It's normal. Yeah. And so then we had our daughter, Lily, and I actually documented the whole pregnancy on YouTube. I don't think you could even tell at that time that I was getting more and more sick. Maybe you could, maybe you couldn't. And we had Lily in October of 2022. It was still a joyful thing for us. I was still finding joy at that time in my life. During the birth, this will be important later, I used nitrous oxide anesthesia while I was in labor, and it's laughing gas. If you've ever been to the dentist, they give you inhale it, and it makes you feel kind of weird. It's funny. I can actually physically watch where my symptoms got significantly worse on YouTube. It's crazy. But anyway, the delivery went well. We had a healthy baby girl, and life continued on from there. Again, I had the baby. I kept pushing forward in life. And then by May of 2023, so we had Lily October 2022, in May of 2023, I had to go back. I had to go back to my doctor. Again, I'm stubborn. I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to admit that something was wrong. My depression was worse, right? But I had to go back to the doctor for help. I was so tired. It got to the point where I couldn't cook anymore for my family. I couldn't clean anymore. I was working, parenting, and sleeping. That's it. That's all that my life was at that time. And I thought to myself at that point, having, been an advocate for other people, I was like, you know what? I'm going to advocate for myself. This is not okay. It's not depression. Test me for things, right? And I'm glad that I pushed. There are so many women who would not push, right? They would just accept that as their life, right? And that's not okay. But I said, you know what? Physically shaking from exhaustion is not normal. Test me for things. Do all the tests. I don't care how much it costs. Do the tests. So they conceded. They ran some blood tests, right? And this is when my first abnormal lab came back. The only abnormal lab I pretty much ever had until this year. And it was my ferritin. It was something I'd never heard of before. And I remember posting on Facebook about it. For all of my, female friends, I said, hey, your hemoglobin, your CBC, your complete blood count, it can be completely normal. And yet you can have something really wrong with you, right? It's your ferritin. It's called ferritin, right? And at this point, I thought that I had found it. I was like, great, I found it. I have low ferritin. We will fix my ferritin and I will go on my way and I will be happy, right? I'll be, the A1 mom again. And this thing where you have normal hemoglobin, but low ferritin, it's called iron deficiency without anemia. And there are some really interesting studies on it and why it happens. And that's what I had. I almost never in my life have had anemia, which is low hemoglobin, right? My body is really good at making hemoglobin. We're really good at staying alive. We are not really good at functioning. I dragged my butt back into the doctor. I said, look at my labs. Do you see this? This is abnormal. There's a flag and it's low ferritin. I joined this Facebook group. It ended up being really, really useful for me. It was called the Iron Protocol. There are some people, some women particularly, who have, put their life into groups like this and advocating for women, and it's amazing. But anyway, I started the Iron Protocol. I started taking high dose iron every day, and it helped with some things. Prior to starting to take the iron, I was sleeping all the time, right? I would wake up in the morning, I would get my kids ready for daycare, send them off. I would go back to sleep, right? I would sleep until I had to drag my butt out of bed to work. I would work for a little bit. I couldn't make it through half a day. I would take a nap midday. I would work a little bit longer. I would take another 20-minute nap before I had to pick up my kids. I would cry because I was so tired. And then I would get my kids and I would take care of them in the evening. I would put them to bed at 7 o'clock and I would go back to sleep and I would just keep doing it. That got a little bit better when I started on the Iron Protocol, which is basically just taking high dose iron every day. But it didn't fix the other things, right? So my fatigue got a little better. I could cut out one of the naps I was taking every day. And I ended up pushing for iron infusions, right? Which is where you get intravenous iron. And if you knew me before all of this, you would know that that's a big deal because I had a severe phobia of needles. I would, before I had to go get my CBC and stuff for my pregnancies, I would stay up all night in a panic about having to get a blood draw the next day. I was severely scared of needles, which is funny now considering, you'll see in the story. But anyway, I got iron infusions and I was like, this is it. I'm going to get iron infusions. You know, I don't have to like take it orally. It's going to go right into my veins. My ferritin will come up and I will be better. Little did I know, no, that wasn't it. Okay. All of these things that I'm describing, again, not normal. So I was less fatigued, but the headaches that I was getting every day, the spinal pain, it was like a burning pain in my spine. And my tremor, which is what I later learned that the shaking in your hands is called. It's called tremor. And that was the thing I associated with old people, right? Essential tremor. It's an old person thing. I don't have that, right? But that's what I had, right? It was tremor. The other thing is I couldn't focus at work for the first time, even after getting the iron infusions, right? So I was a little bit more awake because my ferritin had come up to normal. But suddenly I couldn't focus. I couldn't do my job, which was really weird because I'm a very motivated person. And I started looking into ADHD. Like, do I have ADHD? Like, I can't focus. Like, I'd be working on something and then I would be like, oh, I need to go change the laundry. And then I would, be doing laundry I'm sorry. I had switched jobs by this point. I had switched to a job that I could work from home because I couldn't make it through the day, right? And so anyway, I looked into ADHD and then I was convinced, oh, that's it. It's just ADHD. Our brain kind of latches onto whatever we can grab at that could explain all of the symptoms that we're having. So I was convinced I had ADHD. My doctor was like, yep, it sounds like you have ADHD. You can't focus. Let's try Adderall, right? Which is a stimulant medication. And again, like with the iron, it helped. It helped me for a little while. It helped me to stay awake a little bit longer. It helped me to focus at work. I could do, a few more hours at a time of work, which was really good. I mean, it was a major improvement. And I thought that must be it, right? It's depression and ADHD and iron deficiency, right? I just have all of these things, right? Suddenly in adulthood, which you don't develop ADHD in adulthood. They've studied this. If you suddenly can't concentrate at work, but you did fine throughout school, there is something else going on. So all of those things were starting to get better with all of these meds that we were starting to layer on top of each other. But the tremor and the spinal pain and the headaches, they were still there. And oftentimes they were worse, right? They were like progressing, getting worse and worse. At the time, this is going to be like shocking to some people, but not the people who are going through it. At the time, I told my doctor I'm taking over-the-counter pain medications to control the headaches and the spine pain and everything. Is it okay that I am taking ibuprofen and Tylenol every single day, every day, all the time? And the doctor was like, yeah, that's fine. You can keep doing that. You're fine. Your hemoglobin's fine. So, and your liver looks fine. So yeah, it's fine. It's no problem. So I was taking 4 ibuprofen at a time, that's 800 milligrams, plus 2 Tylenol, that's 1,000 milligrams. And I would take this cocktail every 4 hours from the time I woke up in the morning until the time I went to bed at 7 o'clock at night. And my doctor said, that's fine. Okay, nothing wrong with that. All of your labs look fine, so you can keep doing that. What a nightmare, right? If you know anything about NSAIDs right now, you are probably shaking your head because you know what comes next. NSAIDs do something in the body with prostaglandin, and what it does is it affects your stomach lining. It affects your gut, right? Where it starts to wear away the actual lining of your gut. And it was a huge mistake, right? For me to be taking so much ibuprofen. And we'll talk about why in a minute. My doctor eventually, when I kept bringing this up, said, okay, maybe it's time for you to go see a neurologist. And I was like, a neurologist? This is crazy. I don't need a neurologist. I just need you to tell me what's wrong. She sent me to a neurologist, and the neurologist, probably rightly, said, your body is dependent on and addicted to ibuprofen. And what you're having is called migraines. And your migraines are going down your spine, and that can happen. And what we need to do is get you off ibuprofen. And I was appalled by this because ibuprofen was getting me through my day. And she said, we're going to start a preventative medication. It prevents you from having migraines. And I was like, oh, great. Okay, well, I guess I have migraines now. So let's add amitriptyline onto the medication stack, right? So I was doing that. I was trying so hard not to take ibuprofen. She ended up having to give me a steroid so that I could get through this horrible time where I was cutting ibuprofen completely out. I was in so much pain. I was in tears every day. And we didn't know why. Why was I suddenly developing severe migraine every day? And the amitriptyline, it helped a little bit, right? But again, it didn't fix everything.